GRDC Harvester Setup Guide is designed to help you maximise the capacity of your harvester and minimise losses. Hopefully the guide provides you with some tips and tricks to improve your harvesting performance. Losses off the harvester front can be significant. We can lose grain off the reel, we can lose it off the knife or even the crop divider. So knowing how to measure the losses off the front and then being able to do something about it is absolutely essential.
The first thing that eats our crop when we go into it is these dividers. Back in the old days we used to bend them to get as maximum width as what we can. Nowadays we know we would like to have this divider straight into our crops. We don't want to get that tangled up, we don't want the crop to be tangled up in it, and we don't want this divider knocking all the heads off. As soon as this divider goes through, we'll knock the heads in our crop, so we might get head losses from it. So when this crop divider goes into our crop and it hits the heads of our grain, there's a chance that it might knock the grain out of our head. So we would like to have this as straight as possible so we don't knock the grain out of our heads.
So remember to start with the golden rules of reel setup, that your reel is not a rake, its job is to help to feed the crop into your front after it is cut. So reel timing, speed and finger position are essential to get your crop to feed correctly and properly. And remember the 3/5 rule. Just remember the top points or hot points. Reel needs to gently push the crop onto the auger or platform. Reel pitch can and will affect reel speed. Shattering can occur because of too much speed or too deep a reel engagement. Reel speed needs to be consistent and at that working depth. On auger fronts, the grain should fall against the auger, and on draper or belt fronts, the grain should fall evenly on the belt.
Now we get to our knife. It's very important to have our knife and our knife guard sharp for good cutting. Obviously the quicker we go and we've got a blunt knife or a blunt knife guard, we're not going to cut properly. If we have a look in here, the gap between our knife and our knife guard, we need that to be as tight as possible. We need that knife to be cutting our crop. As the knife is cutting through, we need that to be cutting our crop. If we've got our knife guard, which is this gap here, if we've got that open and your knife goes through it, it's not actually cutting, but it's dragging the material into our knife guard. So as it is dragging in, the crop is actually breaking, you're not cutting it off. So we need that to be as sharp as possible. So you can see here, we want about a 5mm gap in our knife guard. So our knife blade is about 3mm, so there's a millimetre at the top and a millimetre at the bottom. If all of this is worn out, your knife actually flexes. So as the knife head is pushing the knife in, the knife is actually flexing and then it pulls it out the other way. So that can cause a breakage in our knife and it won't cut properly, especially at higher speed, it won't cut.
So remember that our cutter bar and knife angle are not set and forget. We're going to need to correct that appropriate for the crop that we're trying to harvest and how close we want to get that cut to the ground. We're going to need to adjust that or correct that appropriate for the crop that we're trying to harvest. For example, in a lodged crop, we might want to point those knife guards towards the ground and we want to try and get underneath that crop and lift it. So remember the rules for auger fronts apply across all of the brands of machine because effectively those fronts are almost identical. So auger positioning is critical for the crop that you are harvesting. The height from the auger from the floor is important. The lighter the crop and the lower the density of material that you're trying to handle, the closer to the floor the auger needs to be. Conversely, as we add bulk, we need to raise that auger, and in a heavy canola crop or a heavy bean crop, we might need to have that auger as high as 40mm off the floor. The next most important thing is finger timing and stripper plate positioning. So the stripper plate removes the crop material from the auger and feeds it across the front to deliver it to your feeder. That stripper plate must be appropriate to feeder width so that it feeds correctly, and it must be adjusted when your auger is at the lowest setting that you are going to operate it at.
When it comes to our drum, a very important part of it is the finger gap between the floor and the drum itself. We would like to have that about 15 to 20 mils off the floor on drums that you can adjust. Some drums you can't adjust, so it is what it is. We can't move anything there. If we have a look at our finger timing, if we stand to the left of our front, we look towards the feeder drum, we would like to see a full finger extension at around 8 o'clock. If we have big bulky crops, canola crops, bean crops that's really bushy, we would like the fingers to be out at around 10 o'clock so we can grab that bushy plant and drag it in. The trick to it is once that finger is all the way extended at the front, it's going to grab the crop, it's going to pull it into our feed house chain, but when it gets to the back of our feed house or at the front of our feed house, we want those fingers to be all the way in. If it is not all the way retracted, it's going to grab the material and spin it around our drum. So we would like it to stick out either at 8 o'clock for grains and cereals or 10 o'clock in bulky crops, but when it comes to the back, we need it to be all the way back.
So as far as we've got so far, we're feeding our crop. The important thing when we're trying to get the crop to feed from our front and into our feeder house is a couple of small things. So the width of our throat is dependent upon the stripper plates, and all of these fronts will have a stripper plate. And the internal dimension between the two edges should be the same as the outside dimension between the feeder chains. The second thing we need to do is ensure that the height of the front feed drum is correct. And in all of our machines, there will be an adjuster, and the case one is just here, to change the height of that front feed drum. So poor feeding can be the result of poor stripping. If we feed our material too soon, it has a tendency to run around the corner of the feeder and get on top of the feeder chain. If we get lumping and bunching on top of the feeder chain, we can get the feeder chain to jump. So it's important not to do that, okay? If we narrow it too much, we end up with congregation in the centre of our feeder, and that congregation then causes piling, and it will cause the centre feeder chain to overload, and that is undesirable. On a draper front, we can actually help this by adjusting the speed. So on our Macdon, this lever adjusts the speed of the side draper, and we can reduce the level of material in the centre of our draper. On our auger fronts, if we find that we're directing the material too quickly and too close to the centre, we can change the speed of the auger. On the end of the machine, there will be a set of pulleys or a set of sprockets, and we can change the ratio of those to either speed up that auger flow or slow that auger flow down.
Header front accessories can be useful when harvesting the following crops: canola, lupins, soybeans, chickpeas, lentils, flax, peas, rice, cereal in heavy crop, and light lodge crops. Crop lifters are useful for recovering lodge crops, and the tips for the usage is crop lifters should be every 4th guard or every 30 centimeters. Adjust your forward speed to minimize crop losses from using lifters. Look for adjustable lifters so the angle can be changed to suit the conditions of the crop to maximize of about 25 degrees from horizontal. Do not install lifters on the outside 50 centimeters of the cutter bar, as they can cause problems with pushing soil and plant matter in front of the cutter bar. Crop lifters are not cultivators. Make sure they clear the ground. Cereal extensions can be useful in reducing losses in light crops. Extensions are generally plastic and attached to the guard knives and are available in different sizes and lengths. Reel paddles, corn flute, and draper belt brushes can be used to help clear the knife of debris. In paddock, research across southern and western regions identified that improved crop feeding can also lead to the ability to increase ground speed as well as reduce losses. When combined with cereal extensions, paddles, corn flutes, and brushes can lead to significant less header loss. Air reels use air to blow the crop clear of the cutter bar, With short and light crops, this can help to improve performance by allowing a higher ground speed while reducing losses. In lupins, chickpeas and barley and similar crops where yields are less than 1.5 ton, grain savings can be up to 500 kgs per hectare.
So in summary, to set up our header front, we need to remember a few little points. We need to cut cleanly, so knife and guard are very important. Our reel, remember our 3-5 rule with our reel? And its job is to lay our crop material so that it feeds adequately and correctly into the machine.